Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you are fine and must be enjoying your life and also doing work that is your coursework. Let's have a recap about our last lecture about simplex method. In our previous lecture, I introduced you about another method of linear programming. Previously, we have discussed only the graphical methods of solving linear programming related problems. In the last lecture, I introduced you about simplex methods. Then we discussed that how we can solve a particular problem by using that simplex method. We didn't formally discuss the different steps of simplex method, but we just take a very simple example, and I told you that how the different steps should be followed in order to solve the linear programming problems by using this particular method of simplex method of linear programming. Then in the last lecture, I introduced you some new things. That is, I introduced you about slack variables, about surplus variables, then artificial variables. Of course, we didn't talk much about the artificial variables, but we do discussed about slack variables and surplus variables, and we discussed that whenever we have the inequality in less than equal to form, we'll have to add slack variables, and if we have the inequality in the form of less than or greater than, then we'll have to subtract surplus variables, and if we have the equation form, that is equality form, then we may use some artificial variables. So first of all, I told you about converting those inequalities into the equalities by using the slack or surplus variables. Of course, we just discussed the maximization problem and we used slack variables in that particular case. Then after conversion into the equalities form, we find out some initial solution by putting the values of some of the variables equal to 0, and we use the criteria that how many variables should be put equal to 0 as that we have to find out the number of variables minus number of equations. Then we can have the value that how much variables should be equated to 0 as our initial solution. So after this initial solution, I told you about the initial tableau, that how we formulated, and that initial tableau. In that initial tableau, we discussed about the basic variables and the non-basic variables, and to how to write these basic variables and non-basic variables in this particular table. Then we discussed about how to fill this table by using the different form of equations and by using the different coefficients of the different variables. Then we discussed about three very important things, that is pivot column, pivot row and pivot number, and we discussed the method that how we can identify the pivot column, pivot row and pivot number. We also discussed about the two variables, that is referred as entering variable and leaving variable, that how we are able to identify those entering variables and leaving variables. Then we discussed the criteria of optimal solution from this particular table, that if all the coefficients of objective function are positive, then the table will give you the optimal solution in case of maximization problem. This is again very important. This is the case of maximization problem we are discussing. Then we formulated the tables again and again by computing the different rows values, and we used the two important formulas, that is new pivot row, and how we can find the other rows other than the pivot row. And we use the formula for new pivot row equal to 1 over pivot number into the old pivot row, and in this way we calculated the new pivot row for the different tables. And then we use the formula for the other new rows as old row minus pivot column coefficient into or multiply by the new pivot row. So by using these two sort of formulas, we computed the table again and again to test that optimal solution, and finally we got the optimal table through which we were being able to find out the values of x1 and x2 so that we can maximize our objective function. So this is what we discussed in the last class. Okay students, let's discuss now formally the different steps which we have already used in the last example. Now the first step to solve the linear programming problems by using that simplex method is we will have to express the problem in equation form. That is, we'll have to convert that statements in the form of equations or inequalities. The second step is writing the inequalities in form of equalities. Then we'll have to determine an initial feasible solution. Then we'll have to write the initial tableau or iteration. Then we'll have to determine the criteria for optimality. Then selecting and entering variable using the optimality condition. Again we'll have to select a leaving variable using the feasibility condition. Again we will write the optimal solution, and these steps will be repeated again and again until we got some optimal solution. Let's discuss these steps one by one. So the first step is express the problem in equation form. In this particular case, the given problem is in the form of statements. We need to translate it in equation. So students, if you are given a particular problem in the form of statements, as we have already used these sort of statements with respect to that linear programming scenario, when we were using a graphical method for solving the linear programming problems. So first step was we convert those statements in the form of equations and inequalities. The same step will prevail here for the simplex method as well. If we are given a particular situation and particular information, then first of all we'll have to convert that particular information in the form of equation of objective function as well as in the form of inequalities for our constraints. The second step is we will have to write the inequalities in form of equalities. Now class, again we'll have to introduce some variables like slack variables or surplus variables or artificial variables to convert those inequalities into equalities. We can have three types of equations. If we have less than or equal to form of inequality, then what we will do, we'll introduce a slack variable to solve this kind of problem. These slack variables are always added. So what is the point to be noted here, that if we are having less than equal to form of inequalities and we are solving the linear programming problems by using that simplex method, we will introduce slack variables for this particular sort of inequality, and that slack variables are always added. So this is important. Now suppose we have the equation or we have the inequality that is 4x1 plus 3x2 less than or equal to 240, then what we will do, we will introduce a slack variables which may be represented as s1, and in this way we can convert it into the equality as 4x1 plus 3x2 plus s1 is equal to 240. So this is the way to introduce the slack variables. Okay, next form we may have in the different problems when we are solving the linear programming problems by using that simplex method, that is we may have a form of equality, that is we have an equation as a particular constraint. So as a constraint which is actually in an equation form, we will use an artificial variable as a1, and we will add this artificial variable in the left hand side of the equation, and that is if we have the equation as 4x1 plus 3x2 is equal to 240, we will add the artificial variable and the equation will become 4x1 plus 3x2 plus a1 is equal to 240. Okay class, we will discuss this artificial variable when we will solve the particular problem relevant to this particular scenario, but up till now and in today's lecture we will again discuss the maximization problem. Then in the upcoming lectures we will discuss the minimization problem, and of course we will also discuss these artificial variables, that what are the situations we may use that artificial variable. Then again we can have the equal to or greater than form of inequality. If we have this form of inequality, then what we'll do, we will introduce a surplus variable, and these are always subtracted. So whenever we have this sort of inequality, we will always subtract this surplus variable. Surplus variable again may be represented by S, the alphabet S. And again, if we have the equation 4x1 plus 3x2 greater than or equal to 240, and we will introduce the surplus variable here, and the equation will become 4x1 plus 3x2 minus s1 is equal to 240. But in this particular case, we may introduce an artificial variable in a particular scenario. So again class, why we are adding this artificial variable, we will discuss when we will solve the relevant problem. So as a next step, we will have to determine an initial feasible solution. To determine the initial feasible solution, what we will have to do, we will have to see that how much equations and variables are there. So as a next step, we will have to determine an initial feasible solution. To determine an initial feasible solution, see how much equations and variables are there. This will help in deciding how much variables will be given arbitrary values. So we will use this formula, that is number of variables minus the number of equations. Suppose we have 6 variables and we have 4 different equations, then 6 minus 4 is equal to 2, then actually we will have to put the 2 variables equal to 0 in order to find the values of the other variables. So this is criteria which is actually used for the initial feasible solution. Again class, after using that initial feasible solution, we will have to make the initial tableau. There are 2 types of variable in this initial tableau. One sort of variables are known as basic variables, the other sort of variables are known as non-basic variables. Now these are the basic variables, that is all the non-zero variables from the initial solution. All these variables whose value we didn't put equal to 0 are the basic variables, and in this particular row we will have the non-basic variables, and we will include all the variables in this particular row. Then again we will write down the objective function here. This is the area for the right hand side of our equations, and again this is the area for the coefficient of constants that will be written here, and this is the area for the coefficients of objective function. So you must remember that we have already computed this sort of table, and we have already discussed that how we will put the values of the coefficients of equations in this particular table. Then in the next step we will determine the criteria for optimality, that is the solution of the current tableau is said to be optimal if all the objective function coefficient becomes non-negative or positive. Again students, it should be noted here that we are discussing the maximization problems. If we are dealing with the maximization problem, then the optimal criteria will be that all the coefficients of the objective function in the initial tableau or in the tables we will make thereafter should be positive. So all the coefficients of the objective function should be positive. If all the coefficients of that objective function becomes positive, then it will give us the optimal solution. So this is the criteria for optimal condition. Then if we don't able to achieve the optimal solution in that initial tableau, then we'll have to rewrite and remake the table, and we'll have to find out the entering variable and the leaving variable from the initial tableau as well. The entering variable in a maximization problem is non-basic variable with most negative coefficient in the F row. So we have already discussed it that in the objective function we will find out the maximum negative value or the least value which will be taken as, and the corresponding value of non-basic variable will be taken as entering variable. Selecting a leaving variable using the feasibility condition, again we'll have to find out what is our exiting variable. After location and after identifying the pivot row, the corresponding basic variable will be our leaving variable. In case of maximization, the leaving variable is the basic variable associated with the smallest non-negative ratio with the strictly positive denominator. There is no need to take ratios for negative and 0 because they cannot be converted into basic variable column. So again, students, you must remember that after identifying the pivot column, we calculate the value of the ratio in a particular column, and we divide the values of the right hand side by the corresponding values of the pivot column to have the values of these ratios, and then we find out the minimum value of this ratio, and the that particular row with which identify the minimum value will be taken as the pivot row, and the corresponding basic variable will be our leaving variable in this particular case. Then again we'll have to write down the optimal solution. When the solution criteria is satisfied, the values of the decision variables will be taken from the table from the corresponding right hand side. Put these values in the original maximization function to calculate the optimal point. So if we are able to achieve that optimal condition, that is the coefficients of objective function are all positive, then what we'll do, from this particular table we will take the values of our variables and we will put those values in our objective function, and in this way we can find out or we can maximize our objective function. So class, these were the basic steps which are involved in the simplex method. Let's again discuss another example. Now class, again we have this function as f is equal to 5x1 plus 4x2. This is our objective function and we are interested in maximizing this function, and we are interested in the maximization of this function. Now again, this objective function is subject to the different constraints. These are the different constraints, that is 6x1 plus 4x2 less than equal to 24, x1 plus 2x2 less than equal to 6, minus x1 plus x2 is less than equal to 1, x2 is less than equal to 2. So there are four constraints in this particular case. x1, x2 is greater than 0. Again, these refers to the non-negative constraints. Okay class, again as a first step we will have to rewrite these inequalities in some homogeneous form. We have the fourth inequality as x2 is less than equal to 2. There is no x1 in this particular inequality, so what we will do, we will put it as 0x1 plus x2 is less than equal to 2, so that all the equations are written in the similar and homogeneous pattern. As a next step, what we'll have to do, we'll have to introduce a slack variable, because we are dealing with the less than and equal to equations. So let s1, s2, s3 and s4 be our slack variables for the first, second, third and fourth constraints respectively. So what we are doing here, we have introduced these s1, s2, s3, s4 and we have added these slack variables to the inequalities in order to convert them into the equalities. Again class, all the inequalities in this particular question are in the form of that equal to and less than. So we will add the slack variables for each of these inequality. Again our non-negativity constraints become x1, x2, s1, s2, s3, s4 is greater than or equal to 0. Our objective function was f is equal to 5x1 plus 4x2, and again it is always better to rewrite this objective function by taking all the values to the left hand side, so we can get a constant value in the right hand side. So this objective function may be rewritten as f minus 5x1 minus 4x2 is equal to 0. So class, as a next step we will have to find out the initial solution, and we can use a sort of rule for finding out this initial solution. that is, we may find out the number of variables and the number of equations in this particular problem. In this particular problem, we have 6 variables, that is x1, x2, s1, s2, s3 and s4, and we have 4 equations. So 6 minus 4 is equal to 2. It means we'll have to put the value of 2 variables equal to 0. In this particular way, we can find the values of the other unknown variables. So if we put x1 is equal to 0 and x2 is equal to 0 in all the 4 equations, we will get f is equal to 0, s1 is equal to 24, s2 is equal to 6, s3 is equal to 1, s4 is equal to 2. So in this initial solution, in this way we can get the values of all the variables by using that arbitrary value method. Again, class, we'll have to formulate an initial tableau, and you have already worked with this initial tableau in our previous lecture. These are our basic variables, that is, the variables whose values are not equal to 0. That is, we didn't put the values of these variables equal to 0 when we were using that initial solution. So our basic variables will be s1, s2, s3 and s4. We will not take x1 and x2 as the basic variables because we have put the values of x1 and x2 is equal to 0 in our initial solution. So this will not be the basic variables. And in the upper row, we will again write the values of all the variables, that is x1, x2, s1, s2, s3 and s4, and these are actually referred as non-basic variables. Then we have our right hand side column, and we have another row of f, that is the objective function. Now what we will do, we will put the coefficients of these equations one by one in this particular table in order to fill that table. So our first equation was 6x1 plus 4x2 plus s1 is equal to 24. So we will put these coefficients here. As there is no s2, s3 and s4 in this particular equation, so we'll put the values of s2, s3, s4 equal to 0 in this particular row, and the value of the right hand side is equal to 24 in this particular case. Similarly, we will put the coefficient values of the second equation, third equation and fourth equation. So as the next step, we'll have to find out the pivot column, pivot row and pivot number. But before identifying these things, we'll have to find out that whether we are being able to find some optimal solution from this initial tableau. So for that particular purpose, we will have to see the coefficient values of this objective function. Again, we have already put the objective function in this table. If all the coefficients of objective function are positive, then it means that this table gives you the optimal solution. But in this particular case, the values of the objective functions are not all positive. There are 2 negative values, so it means that this table will not give you the optimal solution. So as the next step, we'll have to find out what is the pivot column. For that particular purpose, we'll have to identify the minimum value of coefficient of that objective function. So this highlighted column will be our pivot column. After identifying that pivot column, we'll have to calculate the values for that ratio column. How we can calculate the values of this ratio column? What we will do, we will divide these values of right hand side column by the corresponding values in this pivot column. For example, we will divide 24 by the corresponding value in the pivot column, that is 6. 24 by 6, we will get it as 4. Then in the next row, we will divide this right hand side 6 by the corresponding pivot column, that is 1. So 6 by 1, we will get it as 6. In the next row, what we will do, we will divide 1 by this corresponding pivot column value, that is -1. So we will get the value as -1 here. But again class, if you remember, we discussed in the last lecture that if we got any negative value or infinity value for this ratio, we will ignore those values. So in this particular case we got a negative value as a ratio, so we will ignore this particular value. Again in the next row, if we divide 2 by 0, then it will get infinity, because if we divide any value by 0, it will become infinity by the mathematics rule. So again for this particular case we will again ignore this ratio value. So in this particular ratio column we just have two valid values, that is 4 and 6. Out of these valid values we'll have to identify that what is the minimum value, and in this particular case the minimum value is 4. So this minimum value will help us to identify the pivot row. Actually the corresponding row of this minimum value will be our pivot row. So class, we discussed that how we can identify the pivot column, how we can identify the pivot row. Next we will have to identify the pivot number. Now that is the value where the pivot column and pivot row intersect each other. Now that is this is the point, that is 6, which is highlighted in red. This is the point where the pivot row and pivot column intersect with each other. So our pivot number in this particular case will be equal to 6. So class, we have just discussed this particular table. There are two more values which we should have identified here, that is the entering variable and the leaving variable. Now how we can identify the entering variable? Again we'll have to refer that pivot column, the corresponding non-basic variable, that is x1, against the pivot column will be our entering variable. So in this particular case x1 will be our entering variable, and again the corresponding basic variable against the pivot row will be our leaving variable. In this particular case this variable is s1. So x1 is our entering variable and s1 is our leaving variable. Now what is meant by that leaving variable and entering variable? When we will compute the next table, what we will do, we will just replace that s1 by x1. So it is important to note here in this table that how we can identify the pivot column, how we can identify the pivot row, then how we can find out the pivot number, and what is our leaving variable and what is our entering variable. So class, this is, as we discussed, is the pivot column, and the corresponding non-basic variable x1 is our entering variable, which is represented by this arrow. This is our pivot row, that is the minimum ratio value row, and this is again our pivot number, that is the number at the intersection of pivot row and pivot column. Okay class, let me introduce you some cross checking here, because a lot of calculations are involved in these sort of problems. So at the various steps we can have a sort of guideline that whether we are going in the right direction or not, or we have miscalculated something or not. There are some hints available. The one hint is that the basic variables are equal to 1 under their respective columns, and all the other values in column will be 0. So if you don't have 0 or 1 on these positions, it means you have done something wrong. So what is meant by this particular statement? If you see that s1 is our basic variable and the corresponding non-basic value of s1 is here 1, and all the other values under that s1 variable are equal to 0. So this is meant by this particular situation, that if we compare these values here in this column and the corresponding values here in this row, then we will get the one value as 1 and all the other corresponding values will be equal to 0. If we are not getting this sort of situation, it means you have calculated something wrong and you will have to recheck your problem Again class, let me explain this particular point. This is S1 and the corresponding S1 is this, and the intersection point is this, that is 1, and all the other values in this particular column are 0. Again, this is S2 and the corresponding S2 is this, and at the intersection you know that we have the value equal to 1, and all the value above and below are 0. Again, this is the S3 and the corresponding S3 is here, and the corresponding value at the intersection is 1. Again, all the values above and below are 0. S4, S4. At the intersection we have again 1, and all the values above this one and below this one are 0. So we have this sort of values, and it will give you the guideline that everything is going right, and you didn't have a sort of miscalculation in these sort of problems. So this is just a guideline to recheck your solution. So again class, we have identified the pivot row, we have identified the pivot column, the pivot number, then as well as the entering variables and leaving variables. Now we'll have to compute the new pivot row, and again the formula for computing that new pivot row is equal to 1 over pivot number into the old pivot row. Now what we will do, we will put the value of that pivot number in this particular formula, and we will rewrite our old pivot row here in this particular format, and again we will calculate these values. That is, we will divide all the values in this particular row, we will get the new pivot row. So this is the way we can calculate the new pivot row. As a next step, we will have to calculate the rows other than the pivot row, and again we can use the formula for other new rows, that is other than the pivot rows. New row is equal to old row minus pivot column coefficient into new pivot row. So our new S2 row will be equal to old S2 row, that is the row S2 row in our previous table, minus pivot corresponding pivot column coefficient multiplied by new pivot row. So if we solve this particular equation, we will get the new S2 row equal to, that is 0, 4 by 3, minus 1 by 6, 1, 0, 0, 2. So you must also know at this particular point that how we are doing this calculation, because I have already explained you this calculation in our last lecture. In the similar fashion, we'll have to compute our new S3 row, that will be equal to our old S3 row, that is the S3 row in the old table, minus the corresponding pivot coefficient value into the new pivot row. Again we will get the new S3 row as 0, 5 by 3, 1 by 6, 0, 1, 0, 5. New S4 row is equal to old S4 row minus coefficient of pivot column, and in this particular case that will be equal to 0. So if we multiply this 0 by the new pivot row values, we will again get the same row. Then again students will have to compute the new F row as well. The new F row will be equal to the old F row minus again the corresponding pivot column coefficient into the new pivot row we have just computed. So we will get the new F row as 0, minus 2 by 3, 5 by 6, 0, 0, 0 and 20. So students, what we did, we computed the new pivot row, and we computed the all the other rows which are other than the pivot row by using the two different formulas. So what we'll have to do now, we'll have to replace all of these rows in the previous table. First of all, it is always better to replace your new pivot row by that old pivot row. So this is our new table. What we did in this table, we have replaced new pivot row by the old pivot row, and again we have replaced all the other rows other than the pivot rows. So after doing that, again we'll have to find out the optimal condition, that is whether all the coefficients of objective function are positive or not. Again, in this particular case, one of the negative value we have in case of that objective function, so it means that this table will not give you the optimal solution. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to find out the minimum value of coefficient for this objective function. And again you can see from this table that the minimum value of objective coefficient is -2/3 in this particular case. So in this way we will be able to find out our pivot column, that is the corresponding column with that minimum objective function coefficient. So this is our pivot column. After identifying your pivot column, what we'll have to do, we'll have to identify our pivot row. For that particular case, what we will do, we'll have to divide these right hand side values with the corresponding values in this pivot column. So what we will do, we will divide 4 by 2/3, and this will be equal to 6. Then again this value 2 in the right hand side will be divided by the corresponding x2 value in the pivot column, and that is 4/3, and we will get this value equal to 1.5. Again we will divide this value of right hand side 5 against the corresponding pivot column value, that is 5/3, and we will get the value as 3. This 2 will be divided again by the corresponding pivot column value, that is 1, and we will get it as 2. So after calculating all of these ratios, what we will do, just ignore the negative values or some values which have become infinity. We will just ignore these two types of values. Then we will find out that what is the minimum ratio value. In this particular case, the minimum ratio value is 1.5. So against this value of 1.5, the corresponding row will be our pivot row. So this is our pivot row for this particular table. So we have identified the pivot column again. We have identified the pivot row again in this particular table. Now we have to find out the pivot number. Now what is again the pivot number? That is the number at the intersection of the pivot row as well as the pivot column. In this particular case, that pivot number value is equal to 4/3. So class, I have repeated again and again the criteria for identifying that pivot row, pivot number, and pivot column, and all of these steps, all of these steps are so important that now onward, when you will practice the different related questions, all of these formulas and all of these steps should be on your fingertip. If you don't remember these steps and formulas, it will be very difficult for you people to solve these sort of problems. But if you know the formulas and you well remember the different steps of this simplex method, then you will have no problem by using this sort of method. So important is to remind the different steps and to remind the different iterations and the criteria of finding out the different values such as pivot column, pivot row, pivot number, entering variable and leaving variable. So how we will identify the entering variable and leaving variable in this particular case? The corresponding non-basic variable against the pivot column is our entering variable. Now this is our pivot column, and this is the corresponding non-basic variable, that is x2. So in this particular case, the x2 will be taken as our entering variable, and again the basic variable which is against the pivot row will be our leaving variable. Now this is our pivot row, and the corresponding basic variable is S2. So S2 is here is represented by this arrow. It means that S2 is our leaving variable. So class, what is again meant by this leaving variable and entering variable? When we will compute the next table, because we'll have to compute the next table, as this table will not give us the optimal solution. So when we will compute the next table, we will just replace the value of that leaving variable by that entering variable. That is, we will put x1 here in replace of S2 when we will make and reformulate the next table. Again, we'll have to compute the new pivot row and other rows other than that pivot row in the table we have just computed. Again, we will use the same formula, that is, new pivot row will be equal to 1 over pivot number multiplied by old pivot row. As our new pivot number is 4 by 3, so we will divide this 4 by 3 by 1 according to that particular formula, and we will rewrite the old pivot row here in this particular format. So again, this 4 by 3 is in denominator. We will get this 3 in the numerator and 4 in the denominator when we will rearrange this value. So we will multiply this value of 3 by 4 by each value of these old pivot row, and we will get the new pivot row as 0, 1, minus 1 by 8, 3 by 4, 0, 0, and 3 by 2. So this is the way again how we can compute the new pivot row. Again, we'll have to compute the rows other than the pivot row, and for that particular case we will use this formula, that is, new row is equal to old row minus pivot column coefficient into new pivot row. So in this particular case we'll have to compute the new x1 row. So new x1 row will be equal to old x1 row, that is the x1 row in the previous table, minus pivot column coefficient into the new pivot row. So in this particular case we will get the new x1 row equal to 1, 0, 1 by 4, minus 1 by 2, 0, 0, 3. Next we'll have to compute new S3 row, and this will again be equal to old S3 row minus pivot column coefficient, that is the corresponding pivot column coefficient against that S3, and that is multiplied by the new pivot row, and again we will get the value of that new S3 row as 0, 0, 3 by 8, minus 5 by 4, 1, 0, and 5 by 2. Next we will compute the new S4 row, that is again equal to old S4 row minus pivot column coefficient into new pivot row, and we will get the new S4 row as 0, 0, 1 by 8, minus 3 by 4, 0, 1, and 1 by 2. In the last, we will have to compute that objective function row, that is the F row, and this F row again by using the similar formula, this will be equal to the old F row, that is again the F row in the previous table, minus corresponding pivot value of coefficient, that is the value of the pivot column coefficient corresponding to the F row multiplied by new pivot row. So we will get the new F row as 0, 0, 3 by 4, 1 by 2, 0, 0, 21. Again class, I have just represented these values already being calculated in these slides, because now I should assume that you know that how to calculate these values, because in the last lecture we have already computed the values of these rows step by step, and I explained you that how should we calculate the values of pivot row and the values of non-pivot row by using the two different formulas. So again class, we'll have to check the criteria for the optimal solution. Now again, let me remind you that we were interested in the maximization of some function. We had some function and we were interested to maximize this function. And what is the criteria of optimality for maximization functions? That is, all the coefficients of the objective functions must be equal to positive. If we have even one value of the coefficient of objective function equal to some negative value, then again that will not give you the optimum solution. But if we are able to have all the values of objective function equal to positive, then it means that that particular table will give you the optimum solution. In this particular case, the solution of the current W is said to be optimal if all the objective function coefficient becomes non-negative or positive, as I have just discussed to you. So this is our table. How we get this table? Again, first of all, ideally we should replace the new pivot row we have just calculated by the old pivot row. So we will replace the new pivot row by the old pivot row. After replacing that new pivot row, we will also replace all the other rows which we have just computed, that is all x1 row, x2 row, s3, s4 and f row. So whatever row we have computed other than the pivot row, we will have to replace all of those rows in this particular table. And again, we'll have to find out and we'll have to check out the optimality condition. Now you can see that our optimality condition is satisfied in this particular table, that is all the coefficients of objective functions are positive. There is not a single negative value of the coefficient of objective function. So that was our criteria for optimality. It means that we can achieve some optimal solution from this particular table. Now as a next step, we should find out that what is our optimal solution. Again class, we will refer these basic variables values against that right hand side value, and this particular table is showing us that the value of x1 in this particular table is equal to 3. That is being represented by this right hand side column, and the value of x2 variable is equal to 3.2. Again, it is represented by the corresponding value in that right hand side column. So the criteria for the optimal solution has been satisfied because all the coefficients of objective functions are non-negative or 0, as I just told you. From this optimum table, as I told you that the values of our variables x1 and x2, which are actually our decision variables, are equal to 3 and 3/2 respectively. Now what we will do, we will put these both values in our objective function, and by putting our objective function was f is equal to 5x1 plus 4x2. So if we put x1 is equal to 3 and x2 is equal to 3/2 in this particular objective function, we will get the value of this objective function equal to 21. So class, this is the maximum value for our objective function. And again, if we interpret this final solution and conclusion, it is interpreted as, if we have the value of x1 is equal to 3 and the value of x2 is equal to 3/2, then our maximum objective functions value will be equal to 21. There is no other alternative available through which we can have the maximum value more than this particular value of 21. So class, in this way we can achieve our objective function, that is the maximization of our objective function. And again, we have a check here that we have computed our values rightly or not. When we will put the values of x1 and x2 in our objective function, we get the value of 21. Now this value of 21 should match the objective function value in this particular table, that is equal to 21. So by putting the values of our decision variables in our objective function, we should match this particular value from the relevant objective function in this particular table. If both of these values match with each other, it means that we have done it in the right direction. If these values are not being matched, it means we have miscalculated somewhere. And again, class, as I told you that there are so many steps and there are so many formulas sometimes involved in these problems, you'll have to check the different steps again and again, because if one value becomes wrong, that will go wrong up to the end of this solution. So it is very important to check again and again when you are going to make these tables. And again, I have told you some important checks that how you can have the idea that you are going in the right direction, or there are some chances of miscalculation while computing the different values. So you should always use these sort of checks when you will make practice for these problems. So class, let me say you that we have discussed a very important method of linear programming, that is simplex method. We have already solved a similar problem in our last lecture, but in our today's lecture we discussed in detail the different steps involved in solving the linear programming problems by using this particular technique of simplex method. And again, if we recall all the steps of solving these simplex method problems, but you'll have to keep in mind that we have just discussed the maximization problems, that is we are interested to maximize our function. In the last class we solved the problem in which again we were interested in maximization. Today again we solved a problem in which we were interested in maximizing our objective function. So let me recall all the steps of linear programming problem by using that simplex method. First of all, you have to identify the slack variables, especially in the case of equal to and less than sort of inequalities, and we will use these slack variables to convert all the inequalities into the equalities, and then we will have to find some initial solution by putting the values of variables equal to 0, and after that we can get the values of the other variables. Then again, by using the different inequalities, we will have to formulate an initial tableau. In that initial tableau there are some basic variables which are actually the variables whose value we didn't put equal to 0 in the initial solution, and in the upper row we will have all the values of the variables, that is x1, x2, s1, s2, s3 and s4 if there are 4 slack variables. Then we will fill the this particular table by using the different coefficients of all the equations. Then after fulfilling this table, we will have to check out the condition of optimality, that whether through this variable we will be able to have the optimal solution or not. So again, the condition for checking the optimality is that all the coefficients of objective function must be positive. If there is a single non-positive coefficient, it shows that this table will not give you the optimal solution, and we will have to reformulate another table. And before reformulating the table, we will have to identify some important things here. We will have to identify the pivot column, we will have to identify the pivot row, we will have to identify pivot number. And again, how we can identify the pivot column? That is actually the column corresponding to the minimum objective coefficient. So that will be our pivot column, and again we will divide the right hand side column of this table by this pivot column coefficients. We will get another column in the form of that ratios, and again we will find out the minimum ratio, and the corresponding row will be our pivot row, and the pivot number is the number which is actually lying at the intersection of pivot row and pivot column. Again, we'll have to identify leaving a variable and entering variable. The non-basic variable corresponding to pivot column is our entering variable, and the basic variable corresponding to our pivot row will be our leaving variable. Now in the next table, what we will do, we will replace this leaving variable by the entering variable, and again we'll have to find out the new pivot row, and we'll have to find out the other rows by using the two different formulas we have just discussed, and we will again refill the table. And these steps will be continued up to the extent we have some optimal solution. So class, this is the way we can solve the linear programming problems by using that simplex method, and it is very important for you people to have a practice for these sort of problems from any book. You can refer to any book, but you should practice for these at least for these maximization cases we discussed in our today's lecture, so that you well remember about the different steps and about the different concepts used in this particular method. And okay class, this is all about our today's lecture, and again in the next class we will try to solve some problems relating to the minimization problems, that what changes will be in the different steps if we are interested to minimize our objective function. Then there are some other methods used in this simplex method which are referred as big M method and two-phase method. Again thereafter we will also discuss those very important methods. I hope you will practice for these questions, and you will be well aware of all the steps and all the different concepts involved in this particular method when you will come for the next class. Okay class, let me finish our today's lecture, and stay blessed. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.